G'day y'all. Today I've got a video that I feel like I've been meaning to do for a long time. I'm talking about fragrances that my partner loves on me. These are some of his favorite fragrances that I have worn out of the 500, 600 fragrances that he has smelled on me. And like me, Mr. Zuri is very picky when it comes to fragrance. He doesn't compliment often. So when he does compliment a fragrance, it means something, okay? So I've got some affordable ones that he likes, some designer fragrances, and then I do have like an honorable mention. Okay, I'm just gonna go in no particular order. First one I have is an Arab perfume. This is Victoria Flower Orchid by Maison Alhambra. This is actually their dupe of Flowerbomb Ruby Orchid by Viktor&Rolf. I've done a video comparing this and the original side by side. If you're interested in that, I'll link it below. But this is one that he loves on me. It's got vine peach, it's got orchid, and it's got vanilla in the base. Very simple yet beautiful and feminine scent story. I think there's going to be a theme here in a lot of these fragrances that I have today, and the ones that he loves, they tend to be simpler scent stories. But with that orchid and that peach, it's very sparkling, very dainty, very feminine. It's like a little bit of fruit, but it's more refined, it's a little more sophisticated. And then you have that softness from the vanilla. So this is a very likable one, I feel like. Why am I wheezing? It's feminine, it's sparkling, it's powdery. You've got a little bit of a fruit in there, but it's not overwhelming. It doesn't give teeny bopper if that's something that you don't like or something that you like to avoid, those very overpowering fruity notes. I find that peach, when done well, can be a little more sophisticated, a little more grown. This one's really beautiful, and Mr. Zuri loves this one. Why am I wheezing? It's so weird. Another one of his favorites is actually Killer Queen by Katy Perry. This is a very cheap, affordable celebrity scent. This one's got some fruits at the top. It's got plum. For the florals, you've got jasmine, you've got celosia, you've got frangipani, and in the base, you've got praline, so it adds a little bit of sweetness, and patchouli. I agree with him. I really enjoy this fragrance despite the plum at the top. I find that sometimes plum in cheaper celebrity scents can be a little bit off-putting. But in Killer Queen, I feel like it's done very well. It's not an overly sweet fruitiness at the top. You've got some added sweetness from the praline, but then you've got that balance from the patchouli. So you're not going too in your face, too sweet, too loud. It's still very feminine. That celosia is very prominent. It's a very interesting flower. You've got frangipani, you've got jasmine, and then you've got the slight coziness from the cashmere and in the base too. This is a pretty well-rounded celebrity scent. I actually think it's one of my favorites as well for celebrity scents. I think it's one of the better ones out there, especially for this one, for how old it is. You can get it for pretty inexpensive. It just doesn't last very long as a downside, so just keep that in mind, but he really does like this one. So another one of his favorites. And if you've watched a lot of these videos, this one might not come as a surprise to you, but it's one of his favorites, and that is Ariana Grande Cloud. He likes it more than the intense version. He likes it more than Cloud Pink. There is just something about Cloud. It's creamy. It's got a creamy pear. It's got a very beautiful lavender. The orchid makes it very dainty and feminine and light and fluffy. You've got that whipped cream, and you've got some nice woody notes at the base. It's still a very fluffy, creamy, light fragrance. Now, while I do like Cloud for sleeping, actually, that's why there's so much of this gone, this 30 ml bottle, is because I used to love it to sleep. I would spray it and go to bed. I did spray too much one day, and then I could not spray it again after that. I've been a little bit off-put by it ever since. But Mr. Zuri loves this one. It's a tried and true. I feel like you're going to see this one a lot. I feel like I see this one a lot talked about as far as mass appealing, get a lot of compliments. This is definitely just one of those. It's just one of those better celebrity fragrances. It's not too complex. I think that's what makes it a compliment magnet, is that the scent story is a bit simpler, but it's still just fluffy and creamy. It's a little bit fruity. It's got that little bit of lavender. There's something calming and comforting about it too. It's another one of his favorites, you know? And I think for a good reason. For a celebrity scent, it's pretty good. All right, his next favorite is Alien by Mugler. And I'm totally with him on this one. I love Alien by Mugler. I love a lot of Mugler's fragrances, especially a lot of his older, maybe more polarizing ones. Although this is, I would say it's not a safe blind buy. It's such an alluring jasmine. It's so weird and interesting, but the jasmine's so strong, but it draws you in. There's something about it that's just incredibly inviting, mysterious, yet comforting. And it's got that creamy amber in there as well. It's very sexy, very captivating. I totally agree with him. I love Mugler's Alien. Even the newer formulation, I still really enjoy it. And he loves it too. This is a favorite of both of ours, I think. Another one of his favorites is Viva Juicy Glace by Juicy Couture. As you can see, I have worn a lot of this, so he smelled this a lot on me over the years. This has got pear sorbet and cassis in the top. It's got jasmine and orange blossoms in the floral bouquet and a base of sandalwood and vanilla. This one is very sparkling. It's a little bit of a juicy pear. It's a little powdery, very feminine, very flirty. This one's a bit younger, I think, than most of the ones that I'll talk about today. So if you love those like very young, sweet, hyper feminine fragrances, I mean, I feel like Juicy Couture does that really well. This is one of his favorites. Love the pear in this one. Love the orange blossom in this one. It's that classic Viva La Juicy, like flirty, sparkly DNA with some pear fruit and a little bit of a juiciness too, like a juicy pear. This is a great one. I might have to get another bottle eventually as well, because I've used up quite a bit of this. Another one of his favorites is Blue Parfum by Versace. This one actually surprised me when he first told me that he liked it, because even though it's not one of my favorites, he was very drawn to this. You have a very crisp fruitiness in the top. You've got apple, you've got black currant, so that for that light, airy sweetness. You've got a really crisp apple and peach fruitiness at the top. You've got some really interesting florals in here. You've got clover, forget-me-nots. You've also got rose and rose hip in the heart notes. You've also got a bit of jasmine. He loves rose. It's actually his favorite floral. Although the rose doesn't dominate in here, you can definitely smell it. This is more of like a flesh. I would say this is more of a fresher floral scent. It's just giving very crisp, a little bit greener of a floral. This one's a bit different from the ones I've talked about so far. Although it's still feminine, it's a little more tart. It's got more of like an earthiness. So this is something I would wear maybe to like a garden or maybe like a wedding, something like that. Yeah, very surprised that this is one of his favorites, because definitely not one of mine, but I can see why he likes it. It's got a fruitiness, but it's not overly sweet, and a little bit soapy as well. Definitely more of like a clean floral scent. Another one of his favorites is one that very much surprised me. It's Lur Blue by Guerlain. This is the Eau de Parfum version. I'm pretty sure this is actually the newest version. So there is like an older, like a more vintage scent that's over 100 years old. I'm pretty sure this one is the one from 2021. This one's got anise in the top, very prominent anise note. It's got carnation and neroli in the heart, so it's got a little bit of that like soapy neroli. And in the base you've got iris, you've got violet, tonka bean, benzoin. It's a very powdery violet and iris. I was surprised when he liked this one, because it's not, although I do really like iris and violet, it's definitely not one that I would reach for. It's incredibly powdery, and the combination of the powder and anise is just not my favorite. It is very like vintage smelling. It's definitely giving vintage with the carnation, the very powdery carnation, violet, and the anise at the top. Definitely not a safe blind buy, but he loves this one. He absolutely loves it. So yeah, one of his favorites. Lur Blue EDP by Guerlain. This one is a very rose heavy scent. He didn't pick too many rose heavy scents just because, whoa, that one's leaking, no! I think again, this would not be a safe blind buy just because of oud, how heavy the oud and the rose is in here. This is Midnight Oud by Juliette Has a Gun. This is a very dark rose. This is a very dark, sexy, mysterious. You've got saffron in the top. You've got two types of rose. You've got a little bit of an animalic dirtiness as well. You've got patchouli and sandalwood in the base. It's a very dark, earthy oud and rose. Very sexy though. Very mysterious. A little bit like gothic, if you will. This is like a date night scent. I would wear this if we were going out on a date at night, this is one I would wear. But yeah, he loves rose and he loves oud, and this is like one of his favorite oud and rose combinations. It is very good. Very, very good, but it's very strong. So if you don't love oud, just be careful. Maybe get a sample first. The next favorite of his is a more recent discovery for both of us, and that is Boss the Scent Elixir for her. This one's got pink pepper in the top. It's got belladonna and ambergris. The belladonna flower in here, again, another very simple scent story. You've got that blast of pink pepper at the top, but when that belladonna sets in, it's just such a unique flower. It's a little bit dirty. It's a little bit spicy. It kind of smells vintage is how I like to describe it. It kind of smells like a vintage flower, but then you've got that creamy ambery base. So it's still very modern, very digestible. It's a little bit sweet as well. That belladonna, it's got a little bit of a sweetness too. This is a very thick scent. This is one, again, I would wear at nighttime to an event, especially if I'm dressing up nicely, then this is a go-to for me. And this has ended up being one of his favorites as well as mine. This has been a recent favorite, and again, I just love it. It's those simple scent stories that tend to draw compliments from Mr. Zuri, at least. So, and I find that's the case across the board. These simpler scent stories tend to draw the most compliments. Ones that are where the scent is very clear. It's not muddied up with a lot of other things. People don't know what they're smelling. But it's a very forward, and it just is what it is. It's very simple, but I think it's very good. It is kind of expensive though. I will concede for what it is, it's very expensive. For me, it was worth it. I think maybe we do have more similar tastes than I think, because another one of his favorites is Wanted Girl by Night by Azzaro. Now, if you don't know, this was my favorite perfume of 2023. I have ranted and raved about this fragrance so many times. It's, again, another simple scent story. You've got rum, you've got whipped cream, you have one floral in there. It's Night Blooming Serious. And then in the base, you've got patchouli. The rum is incredibly sweet. You've got that whipped cream at the top. It's not a super bitter, grungy kind of alcohol smell. It's more creamy. On the initial spray, it kind of smells like a really fancy grape soda or something. The compliments that I get on this one outside of Mr. Zuri is that it smells like fairy floss. So I've had friends compliment me when I'm wearing this and say, oh, it kind of smells like fairy floss. I think this one is very sexy. It's fun, it's flirty. It doesn't take itself too seriously, and I think that's what I love about this one, is that it's like feminine and girly and fun, but also sexy. Like, I don't know how it does it. I don't know how it conveys all of those things in a single fragrance. It's also very strong. I've had this bottle for a while now, and one spray is all you need. With this one, it's very strong, so it's one that I would only wear in the winter or like maybe at night. Otherwise, it might just be a little bit too overwhelming, but I love the smell of this one. I kind of forgot. I feel like it doesn't get enough wear. I think I'm too scared to use it up because I don't think they make this anymore. So I'm a little bit scared to use too much of it because I really just want to savor it. But yeah, this is one of his favorites and also one of mine for sure. Even though I feel like I kind of forget about it sometimes and I don't wear it as much as I probably should. Now, this next fragrance is an honorable mention. And although he does really love it, I think it's more a nostalgia thing more than the actual scent itself. But that is Pink Sugar by Aquolina. I wore this one all the time, especially when we first met. This was like my go-to fragrance. I only had like 2 fragrances at the time, and this is what I wore a lot of the time. So I think for him, when he smells this, he thinks of me, and that's why it's his favorite. So that's why it's an honorable mention, because I think it's more so the memories that it's tied to more than the actual scent itself. Again, I still really like Pink Sugar. It's got cotton candy, it's got licorice, so it kind of smells a little burnt, and I know that's why a lot of people don't like it. It kind of smells like burnt sugar. I would say if you like something like Pink Sugar, but maybe a little bit less burny, try Karafi by Latafa. That is like the Middle Eastern version of black sugar. It's like the Arab black sugar. If you can get your hands on that one, maybe try that. It doesn't last very long though. Neither does this one. But it's just one that just evokes happiness for me, and I think him both, it just makes him think of me. It's very fun. It's very young. It's juvenile. It's cotton candy, but there's a little bit of a burntness in there, but I think for me, I like it because it's also nostalgic. I mean, I've been wearing this since I was like a teenager, basically. So yeah, wanted to mention that because while he does really like it, doesn't mean that every guy is gonna like this one. I acknowledge that there is like a nostalgia factor here. I'm sure over time this will change again, so I'll have to do one of these maybe every year or so as I discover new fragrances and as he smells new fragrances on me. I'm sure this will change, but as of now, those are his favorites, or at least the ones that he could think of with me when I was making this list. So what fragrances does your partner love? Which ones do they just go nuts for? Let me know in the comments and you will see me in the next one.